Hi, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Starboard Portal. We have a really awesome topic that we're going to talk about. Want to start off with a couple introductions. First, my name is Blair Overman. I work full-time for U.S. Sailing. I am the Siebel Sailors Program Manager, a relatively new program that we're running at U.S. Sailing, helping to get diverse and new youth into the sport of sailing from the grassroots level. I'm going to introduce our panelists, but I want to give you a little bit of context first. As everyone has been through this rather rough year and a half of coronavirus and some other significant social upheavals that took place in 2020, it brought about a national conversation about race and equity. And I watched as a lot of sailing organizations and prominent people within the sport of sailing, I watched them take the opportunity to really discuss and assess inclusivity in our sport. There's certainly a lot more to be done, but I want to introduce you to our panelists who have been actively involved in pushing for positive change in this arena of diversity, equity, and inclusion. They come from different corners of the sport, and I'm excited for you to hear about their unique perspectives and the work they're doing. So I'm going to start with Captain Donald Lawson. He is currently sitting on the U.S. Sailing DEI committee as a DEI committee member, advising U.S. Sailing on so much within that topic. He is also personally a professional ocean racer, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about what he's doing in that arena. Secondly, we have Preston Anderson. Preston is a current collegiate sailor at Bowdoin College in Maine. Notably, he helped kick off and is currently the vice chair of ICSA TIDE's task force. TIDE stands for the Inclusivity, Diversity, and Equity Task Force. Next, we have Kimo Worthington, sitting on a boat in the fog. Glad he could join us. And Kimo is the general manager for the U.S. Sail GP team. He's a veteran of 6 America's Cup and 4 Whitbread Volvo Ocean Race campaigns. And last but not least, we have Alessandro Ambrosi. He is the head coach for the Hampton University sailing team. Notably, this is the only varsity sailing team at a historically Black college and university. So really, really glad to have you all here. First off, I'm going to pitch it back to Captain Donald Lawson to introduce himself a little bit more, and at the same time, tell us about the DEI work that he's involved in. Captain Lawson.
Thank you, Blair. Thanks so much for hosting us, and thank you so much for the Siebel program. I wish I had that as a child growing up. The work you guys are doing is going to make a difference for the sport of sailing in this country. Which leads me to my background. I started sailing when I was 9 in Baltimore, Maryland, at the Living Classroom Foundation, and that got me into the sport of sailing. And from there, I went on to teach at the Naval Academy, Downtown Sailing Center, and been hired to teach over in Europe as well. From there, to make money in college and that kind of stuff, I did deliveries of boats and did a lot of offshore racing and stuff. And so what I've taken from that is then to be able to help the next generation have opportunities that I didn't have. For example, I didn't know about Olympic sailing. I didn't know about college sailing when I started off. So I joined the DEI committee for U.S. Sailing over a year ago. And I was really impressed that U.S. Sailing was putting forth all this effort to diversify the sport. And so the committee is made up of about 15 individuals from all different walks of life all around the country. And our main goal and main job is to provide information and context to U.S. Sailing as they diversify the sport. So I look forward to sharing so much more with you guys in a few minutes.
Preston, can you tell us a little bit about your work and also some more about you?
Yeah, thanks, Blair. My name is Preston Anderson. I'm currently a rising senior at Bowdoin College, which is kind of crazy to think about. I I started sailing when I was about 8 years old. I started out of the Northwestern Sailing Center and just sailed recreationally up until high school. And then when I was a sophomore in high school, I actually started my high school sailing team. I just wanted to, I felt an urge to want to compete, and we were able to start a sailing team, and we competed in the Chicago circuit, Chicago high school circuit, and that was great. And now I'm competing for Bowdoin, which has been a phenomenal experience. And about a year ago, I recruited several of fellow sailors from New England and across the country to work on to see if they were interested in working on diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives within college sailing and trying to find a way to make the sport more diverse and inclusive. And a year later, we've accomplished a lot, and it's been very exciting. I'm excited to share more on tonight's panel.
Thank you, Preston. If anyone, side note, is interested to learn more about the Tide effort and Preston's involvement, Sailing World just released an article this week in depth on that movement. So check it out if you get a chance. Next, we have Kimo Worthington. Kimo, tell us about your DEI efforts that you're involved in and more about yourself.
Hi, I'm Kimo Worthington. I'm with Sail GP, Team USA. And a little bit about me was I grew up in what you would call, wouldn't say a perfect neighborhood. And luckily I had sailing as a passion and also a purpose to kind of lead me in the right direction. I was very lucky. I was always in the right place, kind of the right time. And I kind of left high school and sailed from like La Paz to Buenos Aires, and off I went. It just kept getting luckier and luckier everywhere I went. And so now I'm with Sail GP, and I'm pretty excited about the purpose that we're trying to put forward, the pathway. We have a huge announcement going out on June 3rd that's going to come out about, we're talking about foiling as a catalyst for change. And so we're pretty excited about this. And we've been working on it all during the COVID, what I call actually the zombie apocalypse. While everything was kind of quiet, we came up with this, Matt Knighton and myself. And Matt Knighton did actually most of the work. And I'm just really excited about something that it's always been in my blood since I was a kid. And I hope I can show some, pathway for these kids. So.
That's awesome. I can't wait to learn more about that when it comes out. Might ask you a little bit on here. And then next we have Alessandro Ambrosi. Tell us more about yourself and a little bit about the DEI work you're involved in.
Thank you, Blair, for having me here. I was born and raised in Italy and arrived here in America many years ago. And I'm the head coach for sailing at Hampton University. Sailing is my life. I started when I was a kid, and I started with windsurfing. So for me, sailing is freedom, is everything. And I sail with all the boat, ships, everything. So that is, and after many years, I'm still here. So I'm still, when I feel the wind, I want to go. that is is in my blood.
I love that. I think I'm going to quote you from now on and say that I sail with all the ships.
Yeah, I sail with everything. And I'm a surfer too. I surf.
Oh, wow.
So within the work you all are doing from your various corners of the sport, where is the DEI work now, and where are you hoping that it's going to go long term? So I'll pitch it back to you, Captain Lawson.
Yeah. So it's a two-part answer. So for part A, the DEI committee, one of the most important things that we're trying to establish is a pathway for everyone to go through U.S. sailing to their passions. Too often, we look at sailing just as a pure sport, where it's the Olympics, it's the America's Cup, it's the Bubba Ocean Race, or the Vendée, and it's so much more to it than just that. And so one of our responsibilities in the committee is to show people, hey, if you love sailing, here are some options you have, and here's how U.S. Sailing can help you get to those locations. There's so many benefits of being a U.S. Sailing member, all kind of discounts on insurance, education, and classes. And today you'll notice sailors today on these boats of theirs, they're more knowledgeable, I think, than they were maybe 40, 50 years ago because people are taking classes now. And if you want to become an instructor, there are instructor level courses as well you could take. And so the goal is to get these courses, get these opportunities in front of as many groups of people out there as possible. And you want to think about it from a sporting standpoint also. Think about it as for a country to maximize its talent, it has to look at its entire pool of individuals. And so the goal and the hope is that in the next 10, 15 years, the U.S. sailing team will start looking more like the population of our country. Part B of it also is that for my program, I'm working on a number of documentaries with some individuals, which we're going to talk more about later on as well, where we're trying to bring the story of people who came before us, what they did, how someone like Captain Teddy Seymour, Captain Bill Pinckney, how they did their voyages and stuff. And so we're doing a documentary called Dark Seas, The Voyages of Captain Donald Lawson, which takes a look at how I learned and produced my career and now the records I'm trying to break. And so education is very important to me. I think it's important to give back. And so that's for both of these parts, whether it's the DEI committee or my personal program, trying to leave a legacy to help others.
Could you tell us a little bit more about how the DEI committee is populated, how representative it is of the U.S., and some of the work that you're doing right now?
Absolutely. So we're trying really hard to make sure the committee represents not the status quo percentage-wise of the population, but to make sure we have enough voices from different backgrounds, different ethnic groups, and also equally important, different regions of the country. Because everyone kind of knows. I know I'm from Maryland, so I have to say it. Newport's kind of like the center of sailing in our country, but it's not the only place in this country of sailing. So the goal is to have as many regions, as many states, as many ethnic groups represented, not just in our committee, but in U.S. sailing as a whole. And so one of the big tasks we've worked on, I say we, but members of the committee have worked on, are pillars, focuses for U.S. sailing and for the sailing community as a whole. And so some of those are coming up pretty soon. If you check out the website, U.S. Sailing website, you'll notice in the DEI section, you'll see an archive of books and articles and videos you can watch. Because one of the questions we get a lot in the committee is where can we go to get information? How can I teach this to my instructors or my family? Or I get messages from parents about their kids, they want their kids to get into sailing. Well, we have a resource page for that as well. And so the goal for the committee overall is to provide the information and the structure, not just for U.S. sailing to reach out to the communities, but communities, if they want to reach out to U.S. sailing, they can go there and get the information.
That's incredible. Thank you. And I know for a fact they have a new email, so you can email the DEI committee directly with your questions or concerns. So that's right. A new feature.
Yes.
And for our live viewers tuning in now, just want to let you know that you are welcome to ask questions throughout. I will be prompting the panelists with a set of my own questions, but we would love to take yours too. So if something perks your interest, feel free to just reach out in the chat and we'll try to work it in. Next, I'm going to go to you, Preston. If you will tell us a little bit about where your work with ICSA's TIDE task force is now and where you're hoping to go.
Yeah, so like I said, about a year ago, I reached out to fellow sailors within New England and across the country. There were two kind of task force committees that were started around the same time, one just within New England and one on the national level. So there's ICSA Tide, and then there's conference tides as well. And when we were first beginning, we were trying to figure out like, what do we want to, like, what are our first projects that we want to attack? Within New England, we really wanted to work on like educating our teams. We wanted to have conversations within our own teams about having critical dialogues on race, privilege. So last fall we released a education program that was really aimed at having a conversation around race, privilege within the sailing community. And about 40 teams which is about all New England teams participated in that. And building on that, we put together on the ICSA level another education program. And these consisted of 3 modules that really wanted to focus, just get the general college sailing community. I believe we had about, I want to say 92 individual teams participate, and about 331 unique individuals participate within on these modules. And it was really trying to just talk about like team culture and going into like implicit bias, microaggressions. We really wanted to engage our teams and engage the college sailing community into having these tough conversations. And then just recently, there was a group led by Corey Radke and a few other undergrads. They just released a survey and demographic report, and that report is actually on our website, and that gives insight to what college sailing looks like now. So it like shows like our race, like demographics on race, gender, sexuality, and it's a very insightful look at how college sailing is made up of. And we really wanted those to be kind of our foundations, so that we can in the future kind of find ways to build on that. So I know that there are a few other committees just getting going now that are focusing on trying to do a lot more community outreach and connecting with different youth sailing groups to get them a little bit more involved, and so that we can keep having these conversations and keep the longevity of our committee going. And I think our overall mission is lived up in all areas of college sailing. And I think that we want to see that all aspects of individuals' identities accepted within college sailing.
So 2 things, 1 comment and 1 question. I just want to say I attended at one of your modules, the implicit bias one. It was pretty incredible. I think the most incredible thing is the fact that you all built your own content for these trainings. So it is college student run, led. The content was built by you all. You're training each other. And I just thought that was super impressive. And thank you for opening it up to people even beyond college students. Really valuable training. And then my question really is around, you say accepted. What is the metric you're using for acceptance? How do you measure, an end goal of people feeling accepted? That's kind of a hard question.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk a little bit about my own experience growing up in sailing a little bit. And when I was in youth sailing, there have been times where, I've been called derogatory terms by a couple of my teammates, or I have been challenged by members of the outside of the sailing community, just because there are these preconceived stereotypes of sailing, to where like it's a predominantly white sport, and like in that, we want to kind of eliminate those stereotypes, and we want to make sure that everyone feels welcome on their teams and feels that, they don't have to go through those experiences that, a person of color that like myself had to deal with growing up, is kind of what I wanted to say.
Well said. And thank you for sharing that personal anecdote. I think those are really important for people to hear, that even those doing the hard work face obstacles as they're doing the work. Preston, I have one more question for you that came from the audience. Peter Barron, thanks for passing this question along. How do you walk the fine line of motivating people to make change and not aggravating those that resist it?
I think that, you know, I've been asked this a couple of times, and one thing that we've really tried to strive for is to stay out of politics and stay, you know, trying to show that, you know, this is what we are trying to do is we're trying to bring more people in. We were trying to, you know, this isn't about, you know, one political view or another. This is more about like making sure, like when we can bring more people in and get more people represented within our sport, that will just make our sport more competitive, and we'll have a lot more people enjoying our sport.
Great answer. Anybody else have answers to that same question?
Yeah, I'll jump on real quick. It's really hard to be competitive and be at your best if you only have a percentage of your population in a sport. And so for everyone listening right now, just briefly think to yourself about the sports that the United States dominates in the Olympics, and think about how diverse those teams are. And so when it comes down to sailing, you know, for a long time, there was not a pathway for even women. I mean, if you go back, I even go this far with it. If you think about it, women athletes had to fight into the 70s to get a chance to get an opportunity just to compete in these events. And so when you look at sailing, you know, we are behind in this area, but the fact that we have leadership and people trying to push the sport forward long term, that's going to lead to more talent. And that more talent may not turn out to be Olympian sailors, Olympic sailors. It may not be America's Cup sailors, but their kids may become Olympic sailors, may become America's Cup sailors. So as Preston was mentioning about stereotypes, you know, I grew up in the 80s. And so I obviously had mentors who helped me get to where I am, but I also had a lot of people who tried to stop me as well because they didn't want me on their boats or at their yacht clubs. And I'm not going to go into all the stories right now, but you know, it's one of those things where a lot of people live in denial and don't want to admit and accept the reality that there is still bias in our society. But I'm here to tell you that there is, and I lived it. And the goal is to make sure the next generation does not have to go through that.
Great answer. Chemo, I'm going to throw this to you. Can you tell us a bit more about yourself and then, where your DEI work that you're involved in is currently and where you're trying to go with it?
Okay. I got to say, Preston, well said. That was well put and very inspiring. Where we are is we're just getting started, honestly. We are just, you know, we know it's a pathway, and the one thing we know, it's a journey, and it's a long journey. It's not something we can just solve overnight, you know, and we all kind of have to help. And I think we're starting to see progress everywhere we kind of look. There's things starting to happen, you know. And where we hope to be at some point, I mean, we're hoping to use foiling kind of like what snowboarding did for skiing. There's something for all kids of background to kind of see something that's cool and fun and kind of inspire them to go sail. They may not be a great professional sailor in the end of the day, but if we can inspire them to kind of want to go sailing or to not, you can kind of make that decision, you know, do I go over here and kind of hang out over here, or do I go down to my sailing class and go sailing and go foiling? You know, we want the kids all to go that way, right? And that's what we're looking for, and hopefully we can do that. But as we know, it's going to take some time.
Thank you, Chemo. Over to you, Alex. Similar question. Where are you engaged in DEI efforts now? How is that going? And where do you see yourself going with those efforts? What's kind of the end goal for you? Sorry, you're on mute. Let me unmute you.
Okay. I started this 13 years ago when Hampton University hired me, because I raise the diverse team in college sailing, because we have student athletes, sailors from all the countries, different religion, different race. I have sailor by Europe, from Turkey, from Africa, from America. And so when you start something change. So it's a long path, because like I say, I started 13 years ago. And at this point, I'm very glad that this movement is growing, because the first year I didn't see this. I have to be clear. I see a lot, like Captain says, a lot of bias in sailing, in college sailing. Me too, I was a diverse coach, because I was coming from a different country, okay? And I didn't speak very good English when I arrived here. It's not that I speak very well now, but maybe it's something I improve. And and after I tried to integrate in the American society. It was not easy, also for me. I became American citizen, and at which point I am now, and we are at the point that we need to start something operational. So sailing need to go in the elementary school with the little kids, and need to be free. We have to break the standard that sailing is an elite sport, only for some class of people. We have to break this. And in this, I'm sorry to tell, right now, America is still under other countries. And if you talk about Olympic sailing, okay, think about a little country like Croatia is beating us about a medal, about everything. But when I'm thinking about sailing, I'm not thinking only about the results, because in my school, I am also an educator. So I'm teaching every year sailing classes for students that they never been on the boat. And some of them, they became good sailors. And one of them, for example, now is a sailing instructor, and he is a teacher, and is involved in sailing with the high school and middle school as a teacher and instructor. So we need to operate, because we have to change, and we have to be strong in this path. That is what I'm thinking. So we have to go in the school, in elementary school, make sailing free for everybody. And like I say, we don't care if we have not everybody that can become a professional sailor, but at least they can love this sport like I love. They can love the sea. They can respect the environment, because a sailor respects the environment. And that is the strong message that we have to give to the next generations.
I feel like you just went ahead and talked about the model that we're running for the Seabowl program: exposure, free sailing, start them when they're young, no barriers. So that's pretty incredible. It's fun to see eye to eye there. I think one question I have from all of your perspectives, and Alex, we'll stick with you answering this first, but what are the biggest barriers you see to us accomplishing something like that?
Yes, the big barrier we know. I don't want to be political, but we know what is going on in America. So that is the big barrier, because there is still a big resistance to accept who is diverse. And I'm not talking about only race. I'm talking about religion, sex, everything. And so we have to break this, but I'm pretty confident that especially the new generation like Preston, okay, they fight for this, but they fight not in the violent mode, but with inspirational, with acting, with the example. And we can do that. We can do that. But it's not happening like Captain says or Kim says tomorrow. But for this, we don't have to be frustrated. We need to be consistent, and we need to be together, because if we work together and we work as a team, we are a winning team.
Wow, we could just end right there. That was beautiful. Um, just kidding. We're going to keep talking. You have a really diverse and incredible group of college sailors that you work with. How did you build a team like that? What inspiration can you give the rest of us who want to do, model after what you've set as an example?
Yeah, to build a team like that, okay, my inspiration was what happened after the rain, because that is my idea. The mother of my son is from Africa. My son is a mixed, okay? And what happened after a rain, after a storm? You see the rainbow, you see the different colors. And since I was educated by my family in Italy, I was educated with this style: to be resilient, to accept, okay, to be inclusive. And how I recruit them? Okay, I have a lot of connection because a lot of friends, maybe they like me. And when I started to recruit, they say, oh, there is this guy, this girl. And it was not easy, because when they arrive here, I have to be them like a family. So the team for them is a family, because they don't have a family here. In the meantime, okay, also the Americans, especially students of Hampton University, they like to be part of the team. So that was really fun. I had a student, for example, that is coming from Italy now, graduated last year, that he was accepted in the strong fraternity of Hampton University. And he was one of the leaders. Incredible. So he was diverse in the diversity. And after, the result, they come if you work. Sometimes you have some delusion, because you say, oh my God, and that was not good. I have to learn to do it better. But if you do something, you realize something. If you don't work, you don't have anything, Yeah.
So I'm wondering if, Preston, you can respond to some of those comments as a college sailor. Does that resonate with you and some of the feedback you've gotten from other sailors, that really creating the right welcoming environment is a key part to diversifying college sailing and maybe racing in general?
Absolutely. I think having like a really inclusive team culture where everyone, is accepted, and, you can, when your team is like your family, and I obviously love the boat and sailing team, and I feel like they're my family members, like, that will want people to come to your team when it's a really fun environment. I feel like, people will want to come to your team and sail with you. I really do believe that.
So I don't know if you all were aware, but one of my charges initially with the Seabowl program was to try to get, diverse youth into the sport, but then to get them into competition. And that takes years. And as we were kind of mapping our centers and looking at the kids that they had who were sailors, we weren't seeing a lot of diverse youth ready to move into a competitive environment. We realized we're going to have to start at the beginning and introduce kids to sailing and get them comfortable, and hopefully make them feel like they're a part of our welcoming sailing family, and then inspire them to maybe move into competition. So I'm wondering, Kimo, as I'm just thinking back to the barriers question, but as you're looking down the pipeline of future, high level professional sailors, are you seeing a good pipeline? Is that a barrier in itself?
Yes, it is, for sure. I mean, look at the America's Cup. We had to go outside our country to get the sailors, right? Even Sail GP, Jimmy Spittle's originally from Australia. No, we don't have a great pipeline, and that's hopefully what we're going to create here. That's something we really have to work on. And it's going to, like I said earlier, it's going to take time. It's just not something that we can just create, but there is some great sailors. There's some great, younger sailors are coming up. And I mean, like Danielle Morris, the foiler that we chose to be on our team, she just won 2 regattas in Europe. against all the women and competes equally with the men. I mean, you know, she's incredible, and she's a foiler. And so there's a pipeline. CJ Perez, who we just also chose on our team, is an amazing foiler and has that kind of spark, that, you know, that edge, you know, that she's going to go all the way. There's no one's going to stop her. She has that inspiration to go all the way. Kind of like, you know, even the Dawn Riley. There was no pathway for Dawn Riley to get on America's Cup boat, but she was going to get on that boat, you know. And if you have that inspiration, you can do it. So I hopefully now, with our initiative that we're going to do, we're going to kind of create a pathway for the younger generation to foil. And it's going to hopefully catalyst that change, and people will be excited about the sport. So that's what I hope. But there is a lot of barriers. I mean, there's logistics, there's awareness, there's cultural, you know, barriers that are holding kids back. So hopefully we can break all those.
I'm going to pitch this audience question to you, Kimo, because you're already on the topic of really incredible and inspiring female athletes. Meredith Vey asked, how critical is the female voice when it comes to developing high performance youth sailors, coaching professionals, boat building and design? What is the vision for females in DEI? Thank you all.
Well, every voice is important. I mean, at North Sales, when I was a vice president in sales and service, I mean, we had a woman designer. We had, you know, I did the women's team with the America's Cup. I was the coach. I mean, it was incredible. And you see those women all the time. And now every time you go sailing, I don't think, and I don't race a lot anymore because obviously none of us have raced in the last year or so, but I think there's a woman on every boat now. Now, the one place we need to do a lot of work on is it more in the afterguard. They need to become more tacticians, more skippers. But even in another space, my wife works for Royal Caribbean, and there's a Captain Kate who runs a Royal Caribbean ship with her whole team is all women. So it's an important voice, right? They're smart, they're you know, they're amazing. So, you know, we do need to do a lot of work, but yes, it's very important.
Alex, you have your hand raised.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I want to talk with about what Kimo says. That and now I'm talking as a coach and a college coach, college sailing coach. So we need more connection between college sailing and the U.S. sailing and the professional sailing. So we see that now sailing, because I follow the America's Cup, and I try also the foil, okay, 2 years ago with the windsurfing and the catamarans in Italy on Lake Garda, where I was born. And so we need right now, college sailing doesn't have a great connection with the US sailing because we sail in a different boat, like if we compare with the boat that they go in the Olympic class, and we see, if we see the next Olympics, not the one in Tokyo, but the one in 4 years, they have a boat with the foil. And because now the new generation, they want to be thrilled be excited by the speed, by everything. And that is the new sailing. That is the new sailing. So change the format, change the boat. For example, in Australia, college sailing, they sail with a skiff. They are not very expensive. We don't need to have the last technology, but we have to change the format and to go close to US sailing. And in this way, there is a connection. We can create a connection.
Preston, go first. Preston, go first. But I don't know how to raise my hand in the chat.
Yeah, I mean, I've been listening to this conversation, and I also want to kind of, I don't know, kind of rebut, but kind of build on this conversation as well, because I do see college sailing as a great entry point for sailing in general. I know my team is a varsity team, and we accept walk-ons who have had no experience sailing at all. And, you know, I feel like college sailing is this great opportunity to welcome in newcomers to our sport because a lot of teams already have the boats, that it's a low cost compared to what youth sailing potentially is. Like, sometimes you have to buy your own boat in youth sailing, and the fees can be super expensive. But in college sailing, those costs are really mitigated. And I feel like, while people may feel that it's not a great lead off to more high performance sailing, I think that it's a great opportunity to stay. There's a great opportunity to stay involved with the sport after college sailing with keelboat sailing and offshore sailing. So I feel like there's other opportunities that a lot of other college sailors can go down with being a newcomer in collegiate sailing.
What about introduce windsurfing? That is not expensive and maybe is exciting also with another class for college sailing. And there are some class of windsurfing like techno class that they are not really expensive. They cost less than a college boat. So we can keep the same boat that we have, the 420s FJs for college sailing, and introduce another class. And that could be a good connection for US sailing and what Kimo is saying, because in the same time, sailors, athletes, the sailors, college sailors, they can learn to sail with the high speed. So that is my idea. It's a technical idea.
Fun ideas.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
Lawson, I know you've been waiting patiently.
Yeah, no, it's a great conversation. So I want to hear the aspects of both sides. So I propose we look at it from two different sides real quick. And I'll try to keep it less nerdy as possible, I promise. One side is the equipment. And so there's been a discussion going on for about 10, 15 years about college equipment not being on par with Olympic equipment. And so just if you think about it from this standpoint, and of course it's a totally different sport, but if you look from basketball, guys and girls who go play basketball in college are generally not being introduced to the sport in college playing basketball. And so when they're playing the sport, it's on a level that they can then go to the next level if they're good enough. With college sailing, there are some All-Americans, there's some top tier talent that is well known, well defined in the competition. And so one of the options US Sailing has is to provide an opportunity for these All-Americans, these people who are top tier athletes, to come try out some of the, do I know at AAU, in basketball and stuff, you'll have these tournaments where the top tier ball players go and they play against each other to find out, to push their envelopes a little bit. And so the option for college kids is simply this: identify the top students and then start working them into Olympic style equipment like a 49er or so, and then find out if they have the aptitude to actually do it. Now, on the athlete side, Kimo was talking about the pipeline, and this is the tougher area because you can't just create a great sailor. It takes time and years. And Kimo's been to like 17 America's Cups and Volvo Ocean races. So you think about how long he had to put in to get there. And he talks about, he mentioned the GP team. Well, yeah, I mean, how many American sailors have actually competed on wing catamarans and stuff? And so it's one of those things where it will take time to develop, but it's going to take also us as an organization, sailing and a community, to start saying, okay, let's take as many people as we can, get them the experience, get them the opportunity to try it. And maybe out of 100 students, you find 2 or 3 that are interested in different aspects of it. And the last point I'll leave, share here, is that one of the things, I've taught sailing for about 15, 16 years now. And I know most of the students I teach are not going to go off and race in the America's Cup. I know that, but that's not my goal and target anyways. My quote that I always tell my students is, sailing is a teacher of life. And the skills and the way you think and how you perform in the water can help you with your decision making in life. And so I think, again, it's important that we look at it from a racing standpoint, trying to develop Olympians, but look at it also just for having lifetime sailors as the other part of the conversation as well.
Okay, I'm going to go off my question script a little bit, so don't don't shoot me. But this has been really interesting conversation, and it makes me think. Predominantly, sailing has been a white male sport. We are branching out from that assuredly, but we have white folks on this call and we have males on this call. And what do you see personally as your responsibility as being maybe one or both of a part of those, affluent groups within sailing to really open space up for others? Because I truly believe sometimes as the group that is not the majority in the room, it is hard to lead that change sitting there as the minority in the room. So just very interested in perspectives on that.
If you don't mind, I'm going to go first with this one because this is a topic that I've been talking about for a long time. And I'm going to start off with a very important statement. Just because the sport of sailing has not been diverse does not mean the sport's been racist. And that's a very, very important stance to start from this conversation. Because people who have come before us, who've done the sport, they were doing something that they had the opportunity to do. I'm not saying that there weren't people who were excluded. Of course, there's times when I've been excluded and pushed away and shunned like that as well. But the totality of the sport is, people got to do what they got to do. Now, once you now know that there's a diversity issue, now that you know that the sport's been limited to just a select few, you get to make a choice. And the sport of sailing now has an opportunity to make a choice about diversifying. Because if it does not diversify, and this is harsh to say, but it's the truth, the sport will die off. Because the new generation coming up behind us, and I'm saying this, I'm 40 years old, but I guess I'm old now. The generation coming up behind me is a lot more open-minded, they're a lot more inclusive. And if they see the sport is closed off to them and their friends, they're not going to participate. And then we could be the last generation of people who actually enjoy the sport. So I'll leave it there.
I totally agree with the captain. And I think that it's a long process, but we have to, like I told before, to start by the elementary school, by the little kids. Because when you start with the little kids, all the barrier, they are not so consolidated, like when you arrive to teenager or 20 years old college sailors and more. So the goal is to start when they are very, very little. And it's a long process because to break this barrier and this standard that sailing is a sport only for elite people, rich people, white people. Yes, we can do that, but we have to start. We have to start to operate. And I'm thinking that we have to start when they are very little kids. With the help of institution, I don't know, but that is the idea.
Thank you, Alex. Preston?
Yeah, and I'm going to build off of this. I think that I wanted to build off of this because I've been having recent conversations with members of Tide over the past week, and I think that it needs to involve everyone, and everyone needs to buy in. And there, I feel like there have been other people that have felt like this too. That there's a Corinthian tradition of the sport. It's really rooted in tradition, and many of the older generation have felt that culture change is near impossible or impossible. So we need everyone to buy in and be able to buy into these initiatives in order to have substantial diversity changing. culture change within our sport.
Absolutely. Thank you. Those were all wonderful answers. There are quite a few questions from our audience. So if you don't mind, I'm gonna, they're kind of in topics all over the board. So I'm gonna ask some. I'm actually gonna ask this one to Chemo or Captain Lawson. How might offshore sailing fit into DEI? And that is from William Strasberg.
Captain, go ahead.
Oh, you go first.
How does it fit into offshore sailing, DEI? You know, it's again creating a pipeline. It's making that opportunity. How do we get them offshore? How do we get them to the boat? How do we make this all happen? And it's up to us to kind of figure out that pathway. And to be honest, I don't have the answer right now, right? But as long as we're all aware and we all work together, and now having even a conversation like this, you know, you see someone with an opportunity, you're like, okay, this is it, you know, off you go. You know, I'm on a boat and we have an African-American who's sailing on the boat with us. You know, we had African-American sailing with Bill Koch. We did the America's Cup. I mean, it just seems to, you know, if we all kind of work on it, it will happen. I have confidence. I do have confidence in all of us to make this. In a couple years' time, I think we're going to have some real change, and I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, and just now I'll add to what he's saying is like how I got started. The only way when I first started sailing, I had to earn my way onto boats, and because at the time, especially back in the 80s, 90s, most boats had 13 crew members and stuff. And so what it came down to was, you know, everyone needed crew members. And so I had to learn every aspect of the boat to have a chance, because one weekend they may need a spinnaker, you know, trimmer, or next week another boat may need a mainsail trimmer. And so I had to learn all these different aspects. And one of the things in my particular culture that we all are taught at a young age is that, you know, you have to be 3 or 4 times better than the people you're going to be working with. And so I would say, if you are a minority, if you're a woman and you want to get involved in offshore sailing, the first thing you want to do is find a local club that has, you know, racing. And as you work through yourself through that club, people are going to ask you because they need crew members. Most of these boats are always undermanned. So what happens is that if you want to try it, go for it.
Next question comes from Jocelyn Reed Swanson. I was hoping to get information on how to get young people of color to consider taking sailing lessons. She's trying to increase diversity in their junior program in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm going to add one thing in before I pitch it, but Jocelyn, we have 3 Siebel programs that are doing just that in the San Francisco Bay Area. So you are more than welcome to shoot me an email at blairoverman@ussailing.org. I'm on the website. And I would be happy to talk to you about that and connect you with our Siebel coach. And he can tell you some of the outreach they're doing that has, you know, made it really easy for people to express interest in sailing and some of the connections they've made. But does anyone else have some input on, you know, especially for groups? I know a lot of kids of color don't know how to swim and are afraid of the water. And maybe the last thing they want to do is get on a boat. And that's not saying everyone, but a lot of the kids we're working with right now have that challenge. So any thoughts on how you entice people down to the water? Alex?
Okay, in my college, I'm teaching 2 classes a year of sailing in the physical education department, where they do practice. They learn the first of sailing, so the position of a skipper, position of the crew, and the sail. And after, I like to start by practice, and after by practice, going in the theory because I don't want that they are bored, or I want to excite them before. That is my method of teaching. And after we talk about the safety on the sea and a lot of stuff that are very important. Yes, they need to be able to swim or to float, but we give the PFT, the life jacket. So I had students that they like to sail, and they were not good swimmer, but with the life jacket, because also we try to capsize the boat. I teach them like to recover when the boat capsizes. One of the first things that we do. And yes, I never had big problems, because after is the ability of the instructor. Okay, if that day is very rough and you don't want that they are scared because they are beginners. So you start when the condition is good, and they became passionate. And the sailing is a work in progress, because also me that there are many years that I'm sailing, I never stop to learn, because every day, what I'm telling to my students, every day, also if you sail in the same place for all your life, you don't have a day equal to another day. Because it's not like a sport. I love basketball, but basketball, okay, all the basketball arena, they are the same. The basket are the same. The ball is this, yes, maybe there are some players that are more skilled, but that is, you play the same game. Sailing is not like this. And when we talk about also competition to an high level, so race, you don't race only against the other competitors, but you race also against the elements. So because can be windy, can be shifty, there is current. So I think that to learn sailing is like have a math test on water.
That is what it is.
Yes.
Captain Lawson, I'm going to pitch this question to you from Marilyn Dimson Doyle. She's looking to create a DEI committee at a yacht club. What suggestions do you have to assist with that?
Okay. First thing would be to reach out to the DEI committee once you get off the call here, and send us an email with who you are, your yacht club, and then communication methods, phone number, email, and we can walk through the process with you from there. And that's kind of our purpose, by the way, is to help clubs to do that. But just a couple thoughts for people who are also wondering the same thing. Karen Harris is our Commodore. She's she's the lead of the committee, I should say. She's almost like a Commodore. And so one of the things she always talks about is picture your area that you live. Let's say it's Baltimore. I forgot the area he's from, but let's just say Baltimore, where I'm from. In that area, you're going to have professional groups, like professional lawyers, professional doctors, professional chefs, and they have events. They have annual get-togethers. They have birthday parties. One of the things that she always says is invite these groups to your club. And what happens, you get a chance then to expose them to your club and get them interested and excited about what you guys are doing. And from there, once you get people excited about what you're doing, they may choose to become members. And then your DEI will kind of expand from there, because they'll bring their friends, they'll bring their siblings, they'll bring their parents, and then maybe eventually they'll bring their kids and stuff, and then expand from there. One of the other things that a lot of people don't realize is that there are a lot of minority sailing clubs around this country. I always tell people that when I'm talking to them, and they're always shocked to hear that there are clubs all over in Baltimore, Chicago, all over. Like the Baltimore club, the USC, Universal Sailing Club, is celebrating its 20th anniversary this August, which means that in the Baltimore, DC, and Annapolis area, there have been hundreds and thousands of African Americans sailing on yachts and boats in the bay that people didn't know about. And so there are people there in your region probably who are already sailing. There's people who are professionals who are looking for activities for themselves and their kids. Try to find ways to invite them in, then sell them on joining your organization.
That's great. We're running up against our time. Unfortunately, I feel like I could talk to you for hours, and I have definitely not gotten to everyone's questions, so I apologize for that. And I feel like we're only just touching the surface of how incredible our 4 panelists are and all the work that they've done and continue to do. So any last thoughts before we end tonight? And maybe we can go around to everyone. Starting, Preston, we're going to start with you.
I'm excited to see kind of what happens in the future with all this work. I think we had a lot of momentum over the past year, and just being able to continue this will be incredibly important and hopefully very impactful.
So true. Chemo, can we go to you next?
Yeah, I'm with Preston. I'm just really excited about making this all happen and seeing what happens in the future. I mean, and I think if there's any more questions, please send them in and we're happy to answer them afterwards. And, maybe we should get together. The one thing is we have to work as a group to see what we can do going forward. So maybe I would like to all kind of reconvene again and kind of go through a few things, honestly, so that's my thoughts.
Absolutely. Yes, I would be more than happy to collect questions from tonight and source them to the right people and get you some answers. So do keep asking questions and we'll collect them. Alex, any last thoughts?
Oh, yes. Like I told before, I started this 13 years ago, and I'm very excited that it is improved and to see the result before maybe my retirement, but also my retirement. So this is something that need to move forward. Now is the time. We have the time, we have the right condition, like when we go to sail and we sail as a sailor, oh, today is my condition. Yes, this is the right condition to start and continue this and insist on this. And okay, I like to answer all the questions, and you can collect all the the question, and I like to answer. You can email me or something. So I'm totally available. Also my email address, you can communicate my email address, and I'm available. And thank you because it was great talking tonight.
Thanks, Alex. Captain Lawson.
Yeah, and yeah, like Alex just said, Blair, thank you so much. First, everything you do besides this, the Siebel program is, I think, going to be a historical program for this country and sailing. So thank you for the work you guys are doing there. And I look forward to visiting more schools this year as well as I did last year. I have to say to the audience, this is a great collection of people here on different aspects of sailing. And I encourage you to visit the Tide website with Preston. Definitely check out the CLGP guys, Chemo, those guys. I think the next event's coming up in the next weekend or two. So go on YouTube, watch it live. It's incredible sailing.
And some big announcements coming in the coming months. So
that's right.
June 3rd, everybody.
That's right. Yes.
And Chemo, I'm Italian American. The last America's Cup I was for the Italian boat, but also for America. So I would like to have a final, but it's next time.
Yeah.
Italy versus America.
Yeah. And make sure you just go back and check out the footage of the racing they do. It's incredible racing. It's great. And then as far as Alex is concerned, Hampton University is the only historically Black college and university with a sailing team. I went to Morgan State for a number of years. My father graduated from Morgan. My younger brother graduated from Morgan. HBCUs is what we do. But I'm a little jealous that Hampton has a team. So, I support them, but a little jealous. And in my case, if anyone has any questions, I know we didn't have time to talk about everything, but if any questions and you want to reach out to me, the easiest way is through my Facebook at Captain Down Lawson, or my Instagram, Captain Down Lawson there as well. Just hit like, then send me a message, because I can't send messages until you send a message to me. I found out on Facebook. But send a message, ask questions. I will answer any question you have. We're here as resources for you guys. DEI committee is going to be here. We're going to be supporting all you guys. If you have any questions, please reach out to us.
Thanks everybody for your time. Audience, thank you for tuning in. We're excited to keep the conversation going, and panelists, it's been a pleasure. Have a great night.
My
Thank you,
pleasure.
Blair.
Have a good night.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
guys.
Thank you, Blair. Nice job.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
See you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.